Today we're visiting a new dig of a canal. This is a slight diversion of a canal that was just behind us here. I'm starting today on a railway, and this is the old bridge that took the main road behind us across what was the Gloucester to Ledbury railway. Now, this wasn't always a railway here. This was originally a canal, and it was the Herefordshire and Gloucestershire Canal. And it was a canal that was built in several sections and wasn't very profitable. So they built the first part in 1798, and they had planned to build the whole canal for about £70,000. What happened was the first section was built, the first half, it cost them in excess of £100,000. So they stopped building, and it wasn't until 1845 that they actually built the second half, and eventually the whole canal cost £250,000. And the idea of the second section was to try and create more traffic on the canal, because it was struggling, and it did help. They got some more goods on, and the tunnel, which is kind of in that direction, they had to put a timetable in, but it just wasn't enough, and it was very soon sold to the Great Western Railway and the Midlands Railway. So this area has changed and changed over the years, so it's gone from canal to railway, and the bit we're on now is slightly higher than the railway, which is just down there, and this is the old road, so they've straightened the road over there, and this makes it very interesting when you're looking at maps, because it's hard to get a line to see where everything is. But what you get along a lot of these old routes is you get the old track and stuff was used as fence posts, and sometimes you get stuff like the sleepers. And when they're sort of stone sleepers, you see stuff, but when you've got these old wooden ones, it's quite rare to actually see anything. And what you have on here is, you can see just on here, you've got two holes, one there and one just up there, and that's where you'd have had the track in the middle, and that's where it would have been clamped on. It's quite rare to see that still on wooden sleepers, because much like the one just over here that's still stood up, there is a hole in there and another one up there, but they're so rotten you can't really see them. So after that bridge we come into quite it's not a deep cutting, but you've got a cutting all the way around here, and this is the track bed of the railway. And what they're going to do is come down through here. If you look straight ahead, you've got a nice clear gap which they've cleared, and behind us they're going to go under the road, which is further up than what the original crossing was, but the road is much higher here. So they're going to lock down in this section behind us and turn and go under the road. And that takes us into the first section of this canal, which is kind of a phase that's not happening yet, but is in planning. They're currently working to get the planning application from here to the bit we jump to right now. And with that wonderfully clear track bed behind us, we can then go into this section, which is the planning. So the Trust own that bit behind us, and they own a section of this field here. And the idea is that they're going to come in across here, and there's some pointers in the field there, which the canal is going to kick slightly here, I think, because they need to allow access across here. There's a public footpath running from left to right from the road across, and if you look just here, there's a swing bridge ready to go that's going to be put in across here. And they want a bit of width here so they can have the tractors that are going to access the farm on the other side to be able to come in and have plenty of room before they go across the swing bridge over into the fields. But what we've got here now is up ahead between these two clumps of trees. They've been working hard to get the next section of canal dug. So let's pop over and have a look. How cool is this? Behind me is Newent now. This is dug back into a track bed. So this was once a railway, and they are slowly working their way down the fields to where we just were. And it's incredible to see. When I was here last, this was just a bit of a squidgy field between the trees. You could see where it was an old track bed. They found lots of stuff in here as they've been going. They've got all the old ballast out of here. They've had to dig out first from the railway. They found old track which was used as fence posts, and obviously where this has had to be built up slightly, they've had to save those, and they're going to use them as sort of structures around here, sort of ornaments and statues around. So there's plenty of history in here. It's very, very, very cool to see this being dug out. And it is very much a building site at the moment. This time of year, the clay is very sticky, so they are doing their best to kind of not churn up the area too much. So this digging is done, and now it's starting to fill. They are planning to do some tests in here. It's all bunded off, and they can then start, as the warmer weather comes and it's a bit drier, they can start using a topsoil across here to repair this and return it to grass. And this is all part of a vision to create a wildlife corridor down through this section, which will include the water, tree planting and much more, with several footpaths going around it, as well as boat trips and possibly a visitor centre here. So what they're in the process of building here is the land bridge on this section of canal, so the farmer can still access the fields over here. Because when that bit's dug out, if they get the planning, is going to mean they're going to have to create a bridge and all the abutments for it and stuff, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So when they're digging that out, the land bridge behind us gives the farmer access to the fields he needs. So today I'm here to meet Mark Atkin, who's part of the trust, and he's going to talk me through and give me a guided tour of this site.
My name's Mark Atkin. I'm one of the volunteers on the Malswick site and the Hereford and Gloucester Canal Trust. The bit where we're at today, this was the most recently dug out piece. We had large spoil heaps here that were imported to build the embankment further down. They were moved last summer and then enabled us to carry on digging through this area. We already had a problem with a leak, and we discovered the mudstone, which is a porous stone. We're pretty certain the water was leaking out to getting down to sort of groundwater level, because when we had a lot of rain the canal was actually rising, and then when it was dry it was dropping again. So we had to get that stone out, which meant digging down about half a metre below a finished depth of the canal, getting all that stone out, and then putting good clay back in, flattening it as best we could with a digger tracking through, and then smoothing the site. But then we carried on digging further along, and we found this mudstone strata is carried on for probably a couple of 100 metres. We're not sure how much further it does go. So having fixed the leak in the bit that was leaking, we've had to use the same principle all the way along this current stretch. So this has all been overdug. The good clay that's come out first, the top metre was good clay, that's been put to one side. The stone's been taken away to another part of the site, and then the clay's had to go back in again.
What you can see here is a big vein of mudstone, look, and this isn't in the canal line, this is to the land to the side where this has been sort of dug out in the past and used as a bit of a yard. But that mudstone you can see is porous, so if you leave that in the canal with the clay soil around it, it's just going to leak through that section. And if we take a closer look at it, what you can see now, the mudstone is it's a very, very small grain. You need a microscope to see it. And what a proper mudstone is it's a mixture of that and a clay. And the problem is with that, where you've got the different sizes and you've got that sort of, it's almost like a limestone, which is like the small grain, it creates leaks. So they've had to dig that out to kind of seal this section. So when they're digging this canal, it's because this is clay soil, apart from the seams of the mudstone, which we just discussed, they didn't have to do a great deal. A lot of it is kind of just compacted and lined, but they did have to import some clay, and you can see the difference in colour between here and on the other side over here. That is the natural soil that's around here, and then this darker stuff is the import. It's been quite good on this site because they've managed to save themselves a lot of money and a lot of transport costs and environmental issues with that by reusing what's already on site. So the last time I was here, none of this was here. They kind of had a little bit of it dug out, but they had to backfill it with the clay that was coming out. And they've had to put this, you can see this is all curved here. If I turn you around as well, you can see it curves around like that. And the reason being, well, there's two reasons. The first one being, there's a little dip just there. And if you look across the fields, there's even more. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it's got some medieval use to it. It was, and they wanted it protected. It's all been dug out, there's nothing there, but they wanted to protect the site. And then they had a tree here, which is a lovely old tree, it needs to be protected as well. So the plan was originally to take the canal across in a straight line, but they had to come between these two sites. So they are trying to protect a lot of the sort of history of this area as well. So what you've got around this hole at the moment is a load of planting being done, and this will eventually kind of go all the way up the sides of the canal, but they needed to do a bit more work here first with the digging and stuff. So you imagine this is going to be a lot greener. Now already since I was here last, which was just over a year ago, you can see how the grass has grown on these banks, and you know, where the towpath, that was all very, very muddy. And this is part of a canal restoration, is you're going to make a lot of mess before it starts to look a bit pretty. And this section behind us, which is quite clay at the moment, this is all going to look like this in a year or so. What you can see here is we're on kind of an embankment, and you'll see it's a little bit wet just sort of down there. And the problem they had with these sections here when they were digging and filling them is there were a bunch of land drains put in. and these land drains are designed to take the water through, so it's like a drilled bit of pipe, water drains through and goes off to sort of lower land. So they found most of them, but they have still got maybe one left over there and maybe some others which they will find as time goes on. The hope is actually, because this is clay soil, that they will kind of seal themselves over time, and it's not dropping that much now, so it might be working. When this section was built, they had to put in a couple of culverts. This is a small culvert and there's a large culvert over there. This deals with the land drains as well. So the land drains, as you can see, that's the wet point stream there. It would have all drained into there. But behind us, on the other side of the canal, they want to put a wetlands. So that would have been the old route of the canal through there, going across here into what is the old railway embankment. Now the railway was obviously built on top of the canal, so they've had to come slightly off course for it. So just over there is a gate, and that's going onto the old embankment, which would have run kind of in the back of the gardens. It's rising up to the train station in Newent, so probably is a little bit higher than what the canal would have been. So the canal wanted to go down that route, but the land was too expensive. This was a much sort of cheaper option. Plus, to take out the embankment in places where they needed to and get over roads is quite a lot of work. And a few years back, the WRG groups came here and they worked on the big culvert, which is just over here. And now last time I was here, this land just dropped off and went to sort of cover that culvert. So this has been built up quite considerably since then, and is now got water in as well and being tested. What you can see from up here is just how much they built this embankment up, and they're going to have to build this up a little bit more. So this is the culvert coming under, and the old culvert running from under the railway embankment. And if you look through here, there's kind of two embankments meeting, and what they would like to do one day, if they can get hold of this land, is to kind of level this off a little bit, and then you can have a bit more of a managed woodland and nature area here, and that would stabilise everything. This could be built up as well, and you could then fill back because it's quite steep here at the moment. So what we had last time I was here were massive piles of clay, and you can still see there's some bits and pieces left here now, and they brought 200 loads of clay in, lorry loads of clay in, and this was used to build this embankment up. Although this is clay soil here and they're reusing most of it, they just didn't have enough to build this embankment. But you can see where they topsoiled, and now already this is turned into grass, so it doesn't take long for nature to recover. So when you build embankments, you have to work to a certain sort of, for every metre you go up, you need to go really 2 metres to 3 metres wide. 2 metres was like an pre-1800 number, and then after that they started going 2.5 to 3 metres. So they didn't have the land through here to quite do it, so you've got a slight pinch point here where the canal is only about 6 metres wide compared to sort of 10 or more further down, which won't be a problem. Boats don't sit that deep in the water, so you'll get 2 boats passing through here still. But this is the extent of the line at the moment. They need to get past the football club and then on towards Newent station down here, but that's a project for the future. There's more work to go on behind us. So at this end, for now, they're going to need a winding hole. And they've got a good relationship with the sort of farmers around here, where quite often they make a purchase together. So if they want to buy a field, the Canal Trust pay a certain amount and the farmer pays the rest, and then they section the field off. And that's worked really well behind us, because that's allowed them to get all the land they need to create this channel, and the farmer's got the land cheaper that he needs to the side. So what they're going to be doing here is they're going to swap some land from here to beyond where that lift bridge is, which they've already purchased, and create a winding hole. And this is all in for the planning with part of the bit behind us as well. It's a good way to show how you work together on these things. You know, farmers gaining what he needs from the deals, the Canal Trusts are getting the land cheaper as well, because they're not having to buy the whole field, which a lot of farmers insist on. So it's a good deal to be had for everyone. So what is going to happen this end? How are they going to get through here? Because if you look ahead, there's a training pitch and a football ground. Now they are in negotiations with the football club and have been for some time about having kind of this side here, which won't encroach on their training pitch, and a bit of land out the back there which takes you across to the lane. So there is hope eventually that this could be built through as well. And the line is protected, so the trust do kind of have a bit of play on that as well. So from all this new canal, have a great day.